Welcome to the Especially for Athletes podcast, where we explore essential principles that empower athletes to learn life's most valuable lessons through sports.
Welcome, everybody, to the Especially for Athletes podcast. I'm Dustin Smith. I'm here with Shad Martin, and our guest today is Coach Randy Simkins. Coach Simkins is the softball coach at Utah Tech University in St. George, Utah. He grew up in a small town in Nevada, played basketball at Southern Utah University, and is now coaching and living in St. George and coaching at Utah Tech University. Coach, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks, gentlemen.
When right before we started recording this, I asked you a question about, well, there's got to be a story from how you ended up from a small town in Nevada to playing basketball at Southern Utah to now coaching softball at Utah Tech. How did you end up being the softball coach at Utah Tech University?
Well, when I grew up out in Nevada, there was 4 small towns in our county. Coach Panaca, Alamo, and Caliente, and they all had a men's fast pitch team. So that's what I grew up watching the adults do during the summer, Labor Day, 4th of July, Memorial Day. They all had a men's fast pitch. So my cousin, my uncle, a few of my uncles, everybody's dad played. So we did it. I didn't know slow pitch existed until I got to college at Southern Utah, and we go play softball. I'm like, hey, who pitches? And they're like, oh, anybody pitches. And it was slow pitch. So I'm like, wow. So I've never even seen it till I got to college. So I grew up, playing men's fast pitch and then ended up transitioning to be a pitcher. So I'm still a men's pitcher. I throw BP to our girls all the time. I don't travel around. I used to travel quite a bit, played on teams out of Northern Utah, played on a team out of New Mexico, a team out of Kelso, Missouri, a team out of Memphis, Tennessee, played a few of those, but I don't travel around near as much. But so that's how I got into fast pitch softball. But my dream, just like every other kid, was to make it to the NBA. Obviously, I'm almost 6'9", so I played basketball growing up. I was fortunate enough to play basketball at Southern Utah. My town is 80 miles straight west of Cedar City, so it was obvious. Played close to home, had a great opportunity to play there. Got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, so I taught high school math for 27 years, but I've been down here. I think this is my 18th year. I think my claim to fame, and Gordon Neekin from BYU pointed this out to me several years ago, is you're the only coach in the country that's coached JUCO, D2, and D1 and never had to move. So when I started here in 03 and 04, we were junior college. I left, was at the high school for a few years, and then came back in 09, and we were in D2, and now we're D1. I've seen it from all perspectives. So I do have a pretty wide perspective on the junior college, D2 and D1 athletics. So, but I got the greatest job ever.
Well, that's, not a lot of coaches can say they've done that. You probably are the only one. And I bet you that I can guarantee you're the tallest college softball coach in the world. That's probably fair.
There's a couple others, Glenn Moore from Baylor. There's a couple other guys that are pretty tall, but yeah, I think I probably got him by an inch or so. Pete Meredith at BYU, I think I got him by an inch or two, but yeah. So you're probably right.
I'm sitting here imagining fast pitch men's softball with a 6'9" guy that close to you. You could almost step halfway to home plate before you let the ball go.
You're right, but it also comes back that much faster too if you're that close. You definitely want to avoid making mistakes in the middle of the plate.
Yeah. But I'm guessing that the angle that you release it with, you probably have long arms. Like you can probably do some nasty stuff to that softball.
It's fun. It's a great sport for sure.
Well, let me jump right into a question that we've had baseball people on here before, and Shad and I played baseball together in college, and I've had 2 sons that have grown up playing baseball, and baseball's, it's a world. It's completely different. It's a different world now than it used to be, 30 years ago when I played it. Is with club ball and travel ball and all this stuff. Is that the same in the softball world? And what are the pros and cons that you see to this current sort of AAU model youth sports that we have?
We always say we get them from the most selfish world that they're ever going to live in, because it's more important for these kids in the travel ball world to be successful with the college coach watching than it is for their team to win the game. And we've kind of messed that up with all the showcases and the combines and all of the things that we throw at them as far as, hey, these are the measurables that you need to get to, but they forget how to play the game. We have a thing that this used to hang up, and I don't know if you can really see it very well, but it's a baseballism quote. And it says, the name on the front of the jersey represents who you play for. The name on the back of the jersey represents who raised you. Do them both justice, And we always say play for the name on the front of the shirt, okay, rather than the name on the back of the shirt. Because the back of the shirt sometimes, especially in the AAU travel ball world that you talk about, they're so focused on them being successful that they forget to play for their teammates. And like I say, it's more important for them to go 3 for 3 if I'm watching than it is for their team to win the game. And then they get to us and they forget how to play the game because they play these hour-and-a-half showcases, and they don't understand how to play 7 innings or 9 innings or whatever. So we preach a ton, play for the name on the front of the shirt, play, and don't. The other thing is that they change they change travel ball teams like we change clothes. They're playing from the time they start, at 10 or 12 years old, they're playing for 5 or 6 different travel ball teams. And some of them are playing at 2 or 3 different schools, and we want them to play where they live, struggle sometimes. And sometimes it's not going to be easy. It's easy to transfer and go to the school down the street that's going to win a bunch of games, but playing with the person that you grew up across the street with and the kid that you sit next to in algebra 2 class, those are really, really important things. The other thing with AAU and travel ball, I'm a big proponent, a big advocate of playing more than one sport. And that's hard because a lot of these travel ball coaches and AAU coaches are not wanting them to play anything else. And when you're in high school, I was coaching at some of the schools that were smallest in the classification. And if we didn't have those extra football guys come and play basketball for us, or some of these volleyball girls play softball for us, we weren't going to be as competitive. We needed those girls. We needed those guys. And if you get somebody hurt and you don't have those guys, you're not going to be very competitive.
Why do you think it's important, Coach, from a Division I softball coach saying, parents, let your kids play more than one sport? What benefits have you seen on the other side of that make you say that?
They play so much. They're playing between 75 and 150 games a year. Number one, the wear and tear on their arm, especially overhand, is really difficult. And you're seeing, I saw a thing the other day that from Major League Baseball doing a mandatory kind of moratorium where these Major League scouts can't go watch video, combines or anything during some of these periods because they're seeing such a rise in arm injuries. So, giving their body a rest from the sport specific exercises that we do is a huge thing. The benefit of them competing from a different perspective. Say Dustin's the best quarterback on the football team, but he's the backup shortstop, or a pinch hitter or a pinch runner or a bullpen catcher. He's going to look at competition from a much different aspect. He walks down the hall during football season and everybody thinks he's on this big pedestal. Well, he walks down the hall in baseball season and nobody even sees him play unless it's mom and dad in a blowout game or something like that. So his perspective on those type of competition, and then the being able to train for a different sport athletically, allows you to be a better athlete and understand your body in space in a much different realm.
So when you're recruiting, watching a girl that you're considering offering or bringing into Utah Tech, how important is it to see that girl compete, right? If she goes 3 for 3 and loses but doesn't care, what does that do in your mindset of should we recruit her or not?
Yeah. The best catcher I ever recruited, kid, was National Catcher of the Year when we were at D2. She went 0 for 3 on the day I decided to offer her, but it was how she went 0 for 3. It's how she competed and how she had her at-bats. And, I think one of them was a routine ground ball after like 11 pitches to the pitcher, but she sprinted it out on her 3rd at bat. So it's how you do those things. Those are really big. We always say we want to see you fail. As a pitcher, and I'm a pitching coach, I want to see you fail. I want to see you give up that home run. Not very often, obviously, but I do want to see you give up, a tough hit or whatever, because I want to see how you throw to the next 3 hitters. And I want to see how you interact with your teammates. And I want to see how you talk to your pitching coach when you come off the dugout, come off the field into the dugout. And I want to see you maybe possibly lose a close game. And I want to see how you deal with your parents and your teammates at the end of that, because that's what's in here, But when I got done playing basketball in college, I helped Coach Evans, Bill Evans, that was the basketball coach at Southern Utah after I left, run some summer tournaments. And he had a kid in there that he was looking to recruit. And he asked me, well, hey, what do I think about the kid? And this kid checked all the boxes. He was elbow deep in the rim. He could knock down threes, could score mid-range. He could get to the free throw line, the whole 9 yards. And when his team was good, he was the best player on the floor. But as soon as his team wasn't very good, he was the last player down the floor, complaining to the referees, not setting good screens, all that type of stuff. And he asked me at the end of the week, he says, Coach Simkins, what do you think? And I told him at the first of the week, Coach, you need this kid on your team. And then at the end of the week, I told him that, and he looked at me right in the eye and he poked me in the chest. He goes, Coach Simkins, heart transplants are hard to come by and they cost a lot of money. And these kids, so when we watch them, we want to see what's in here. We want to see what's in their heart, because we can't change a whole lot. That comes from the parents, that comes from their coaching, that comes from them. And one of your core values is resiliency. Being able to deal with failure and setbacks is going to happen to you every day, and when you don't deal with it well, you got some growing up to do, and you got some teaching to do, I guess.
Dustin, this goes to, I don't know if I've ever shared this story before, but when I was a senior in high school, I was playing in a tournament, the Pomona baseball tournament, and a coach from Cal State Los Angeles, who I ended up playing for, came to watch the game. He had seen me the year before when he recruited one of my teammates that went there. So he sat next to my dad, and he was sitting between my dad and his player's dad, because he had a little brother on the team as well. And there came a play. I mean, you know how it goes with tournament umpires, right? You're getting whoever you can, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a really bad call. And I'm not just saying that. This ball was probably 8 inches outside, and the guy rung me up and I struck out. And the coach turned to my dad and said, I want to see how your son reacts to this. And so I go back to, put my bat in the bat rack, grab my glove, put on my hat, and I started to cheer for the guy up to bat. Like, let's go, Chris. And he turned to my dad and said, when can you guys visit Cal State Los Angeles? I'd love your son to come and play for me. So he had seen enough of other stuff, apparently, but the way I reacted to that was what sold him on me. And yeah. I think that young people don't understand all of those things that go into recruiting.
I tell the quarterbacks I work with, when a coach comes to see you, he's already seen you throw. Like, he knows you can play. He's coming to look for the things he can't see on film. And those are, what do you do on the sidelines? What do you do after, a touchdown? Do you run over by yourself, take your helmet off and stand by yourself so everyone can see you? Or do you go talk to your lineman? Right? Like, how do you act when you throw an interception coming off the field? Because they know you're going to throw an interception, right? They get that. It's like this guy said to you, Shad, and Coach, like you talked about, I want to see how he acts after he throws an interception when he comes over to the sideline. Does he go and blame his wide receiver? Does he throw his hands up and complain when he gets to the sideline that it's not my fault? Like, those are the things you can't see on film. But the coach wouldn't be there watching you if he didn't already think you could hit a baseball, or pitch and throw a strike. But I remember here a scout for the New York Yankees telling me about, this was, almost 20 years ago. He said, I want to watch his ass get off the bus, is what he told me. So he'll show up early. He said, if he gets off the bus and his hat's on backwards and his AirPods are in, and this was actually before AirPods, his headphones are in, and he's got his flip-flops on, he's not talking to his team, and he kind of shuffles into the dugout, and there's no energy. He walks out onto the field to take fly balls during BP. All of those are indicators to me that I don't like. I want to see, how does he interact with his teammates? How does he run out of the dugout? What does he do before the game that separates him from the other guys I've seen that can all hit well and run well and throw well? And to your point, Shad, I don't think kids really understand that's what everybody, they're all the best of the best. So like we talked about, it's the ands and buts that Nick Saban talks about. He does this, and he does this, and he really knows how to fail. Or he does this, and he does this, and he does. But when he fails, dude's selfish, goes in the tank, right? That's what separates you.
Yeah.
I listened to a college basketball, a woman college basketball coach the other day. I can't even remember who it was, but she says, I purposely go watch blowouts with the recruits that I want to recruit because I want to see how they spend the 20 minutes on the bench and the 10 minutes in the game. Because they're going to play for a quarter and a half, and then they're going to be up a whole bunch. And I want to see what they do. And we preach that with us. We figure that in a 2-hour softball game, you're going to have about 10 minutes that you're actively engaged in something that relies on you. Fielding a ground ball, cut off, your swings in the box, that 10 minutes. What are you doing for the other hour 50? Are you being productive for the other hour 50? So we write that right on our own core values, the 10 minutes versus hour 50. What are you doing? So my son's a sophomore playing basketball, and I always tell him, you've got about 4 minutes out of that 32 minutes, maybe 5 of that 32 minutes that you'll have the ball in your hand, or you're going to be guarding the ball. What are you doing for the other 27 minutes? Are you setting the screen? Are you hustling back? Are you talking? Are you cheering when you're off the floor? Those types of things. Because everybody's really good when they're guarding the ball or they have the ball in their hand, or when they're up there. But are you impacting the game in a positive way when you're not involved? And that's what as coaches, that's what we're always looking for. And that's a mature thing to do. When I coached high school basketball, we had 2 brothers on the team, Jeremy and Stevie Barnes, and Jeremy was a junior and Stevie was a sophomore, and we won a state championship that year. And actually, Stevie was a junior and Jeremy was a senior, but Stevie was our point guard, and he would play 32 minutes, and Jeremy was his backup. And sometimes Jeremy wouldn't get in the game. Well, we went 22-2 and won it all when I was an assistant coach with Coach Hodson. But guess who beat the living dog out of little brother every day in practice? Jeremy beat Stevie up because he knew come Friday night, the other team wasn't going to take it easy on him. So if I'm going to take it easy on my little brother, because I'm not doing him any favors and it's not making me any better. But guess who got a championship ring? Both Jeremy and Stevie, and they both looked exactly the same. Yeah. So I always tell people my Jeremy Barnes story, because that's the 25 on 9, that's the 12 on 5 mentality of everybody on your bench against their 5 on the floor, or the 25 people on your roster versus their 9 on the field. Everybody's got a role to play, and it might be during practice, it might be in the bullpen, it might be in the dugout, picking pitches from the opposing pitcher. But if you're not comfortable being a role player, you're only going to be so good.
Okay, so I have a question, Dustin, because I realize here I'm with 2 coaches, and so I actually have a question for both of you, and it relates to something, Randy, that you said earlier. And Dustin, I know it's a misconception that you and I have talked about in casual conversations before. I have a buddy who says, okay, so there's these kids playing from my town. I coached them as youth, and they come up and they get to high school, and then some other schools start coming in and saying, hey, you should come play for us, right? And his statement was, it's really hard to look at that kid in the face and say, no, don't do it, because some of those kids, now that there's NIL money in college, and if they're really good, they're going to get seen better at that school. And he said, I feel, because part of me wants to say, stay home and play with your buddies, play with those coaches, play with your own community. And then part of me is like, but I understand if you go to this school, you are going to get seen more on a national level. And I'm just wondering about that tension with the 2 of you. One college coach, one high school coach. Dustin, you had a young man that played for you last year that's at USC now, and so many that have gone on that have played for you and are playing in major colleges. And I'm just, because I hear what you're saying, Coach Simkins, man, just play with those, like, for the front of your jersey. And then now there's this other element that's been introduced even into high school sports. And I don't even know what answer I want the two of you to give. I'm just wondering, from a coach perspective, what would you say to that?
I'll go first. It's hard because it's really difficult. We've lost kids to the transfer portal. 2 years ago we won our conference and we lost 2 kids that were all region kids to bigger schools, and they got more money. And so we understand that, and our athletic director made the comment, we might be the Duke of small schools because we coach them up and they play really hard and they do really well. And then they end up going to a bigger school, and when you see some of the money, and not necessarily, it might not be in our case, but in some of these bigger schools, some of these kids are getting generational money, and it's going to change their family forever, where they're getting thousands and tens and thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're going to graduate debt free, and it's going to change their family or their personal family's life forever. So it's really hard. And I put myself as a 19-year-old. If I had the opportunity to go get paid a whole bunch of money, there's no way that I would have stayed. There's no way. I know what I was like as a 19-year-old, and I loved my college experience. But if somebody was going to pay me that much money, I probably would have left too. So you can't fault those kids. It puts them in a tough situation. It really does. We want them to be loyal, but we also understand, hey, if there's a great opportunity for you, you know what? Go. Jerry Glasgow, coach at Texas Tech, he was at Louisiana, and they had an opportunity for a young lady to go from University of Louisiana to Oklahoma. And he had coached this young lady for 3 years, and she was unbelievably good. And Oklahoma was going to give her a whole bunch of money, and he told her, go. You only have one opportunity to play for this school at this location. So yeah, it's, from the high school to college, it's a little different. But these kids get the opportunity to do something like that. It's a really tough decision that you have to have with them.
Yeah. What would you say, Dustin, on the high school level? It's a little different.
Yeah, I think for most kids, they don't fall into that big payday NIL. I think they do. And so that's the excuse that can be used for why I need to go, play for this school, because of the reasons you said. They get more eyeballs on them. They're going to be on TV. Fortunately, the last couple years, it's completely changed everything. And I agree with Coach Simkins that there are some cases where it's really hard to tell a kid that, he's going to get the same sort of eyeballs and the same sort of attention playing at a really small school somewhere versus playing at, the big 6A school that's going to be playing in the state championship and going to have college coaches at all the practices all the time and say, you're still going to get seen. You're still going to be found. Now, in most cases, I still think that the elite athletes, no matter where they play, will still be found. They have to do a little bit of marketing of themselves. You still need to go to camps and you still need to do some things. But this NIL thing has changed everything. It really has. And we're so new in it in the high school world because it's very slowly worked its way into high school. And I don't think people realize how much of the NIL world is now integrated inside of high school, where high school kids are being paid. And high school kids are going to be skipping their senior years after they have these big offers to potentially avoid injury. Why? Right? I got this money. I'll go get a trainer, a nutritionist. I'll do homeschool now, and then I'll work out 5-6 hours a day. And why risk tearing my ACL playing against some small school somewhere? So, and how do you argue that? To Coach's point, like when a kid's going to be making, in some cases, over $1 million in football, certain position groups, quarterbacks, if you're at a big time school, it's going to be $1 million plus at every big time college school. It's really hard to tell a kid, not to. Unfortunately, it's going to cause some problem for really the purity of the game, where I think it's going. And I hope my next comment ages well. Maybe if it does, we can pull this up in 5 or 10 years. But I think we're going to where a private business is going to start in all sports their own league. And it's going to be like the AAU model, where the elite of the elite are going to play under the sponsorship of whatever company. And they're going to be their own independent from high schools, the best of the best. And they're going to play against each other, where the schools all know these are where the top kids are. And that's where the money goes. And these kids are training to be elite level athletes. It's already happening right now as we speak today. I know of 3 sports performance training facilities just in Utah County that have opened up homeschool options where kids don't go to school. And these are junior high kids. They're not going to junior high anymore. They're going to the training facility that they train in, doing online training for 3 or 4 hours, and then training the rest of the day. And these are kids who are 14. You don't even know if they're any good yet, but they're that serious about it. I think it's just going to become individualized, its own business, and high school sports is going to be kind of the second tier. But the best of the best are going to play under the Nike or the Adidas or the whatever, major company in the state that's going to sponsor them, and they'll play against teams from other states. And that's where the big schools will come to find the elite of the elite. I think that's where it's going.
Well, don't you see that in basketball already? Like we have some schools here in Utah, right? That they don't compete for a state championship. They're playing on the national level. So basketball is probably the easiest sport to do it in because it's 5 to 10 players. You get to come to your school, and sometimes it's in the middle of nowhere, Sanpete, Utah, right? And you're there, and I mean it's wonderful. They're getting some training and things like that, and great recruits come out of there. But you're already seeing it in some sports for sure. So that's interesting, Dustin. I hadn't really thought of that, but that's kind of where it's going, isn't it?
You don't need that many. I mean, a football team, you could have, 40 kids, 30 kids really. And you got your 11 starters on offense, your 11 on defense, a handful of kind of backup kids, and you're playing against the other top 20 or 30 of those teams in the country. And if you're on that team, you're a big time player everyone's going to have offers. They're going to be throwing the best technology and science and food and training at these kids because they're their own brand that's going to make a lot of people a lot of money. And you can do your schooling now online. You don't need to go to high school to be educated anymore. It can be done online. You can get your degree online. Everything can be done at home. So they'll say, I don't need to go to the dances and I don't need to be part of that part of school. Unfortunately, I think that's awful for their social development, but everybody thinks that their kid's the next one, right? And that money will buy it. And that's where I think we're headed.
Yeah, and you touched on it. Let the kid be a kid. Being able to go to dances. My sophomore got asked to his first dance the other night, and those are the experiences that we want them to have. You might miss something to go to that dance or whatever, but it's okay. Those parts of growing up, and yeah, I understand the elite athletics end of it, but at some point that ends. I listened to a guy the other day talk about when these 18-year-old kids get to college, their mental age is probably 15, maybe 16. Why? Because they haven't ever had to communicate other than this. Everything that they do it's not paper pencil anymore. It's electronic. It's not face-to-face anymore. It's electronic. They don't call somebody up to actually talk to them. They submit it electronically. So when we bring these kids in here and they're freshmen in college and we're expecting them to know how to do all of the other things that people did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago when they got to college and they don't know how to do it, well, it's not 100% their fault because they haven't ever had to do that. They've done everything electronically and they've never had to go, do some of the things that us older people had to do growing up. So their development is a little bit delayed. And the more they go to that model that Dustin was just talking about, where they're kind of separated from the regular group, the more they're going to feel like that they maybe are above the law, not really above the law, but maybe they're a different part of society. We want these kids to feel like that they're part of our community rather than a different or a higher set of our community.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Dustin, something you said goes right along with this. So that is, we're talking probably about 30 kids, take a state like Utah, we're the elite of the elite, and we're talking 30 kids in high school. So maybe 10 to 12 per class are what we're talking about that's going to go make this money. Yeah. But if parents are treating all of their kids as though, hey, you are the elite of the elite, and in their mind, of course, they think that, But that's just not true. It really is not true. Baseball is a great example because of the amateur draft. There are kids that are incredible high school baseball players here in Utah, for example. Maybe one or two of those are going to get drafted to play minor league baseball, right? And the rest are going to go on and play at normal colleges and do normal things and have great experiences that are going to help them develop in life and have the life lessons that we all learned, right? I mean, everyone on here played at a small college, yet sports are still an integral part of our growth, our friendships, and all of those things. And I think if we start treating sports like a business and a way to make NIL, what the collateral damage of that is friendships and opportunities and those moments when you're riding on a high school bus and you just got McDonald's and you've just won together. Those moments that we all long for now, some kids will never get to experience.
I listened to your podcast with Brandon Doman the other day, and he talked about having the competition against the other high school kids, and then you get to college and you end up to be best friends. That was me. A kid beat me out for player of the year at our small schools in Nevada, and his team beat my team for the state championship. And we get to college and he's playing football and I'm playing basketball at Southern Utah. And fast forward to this day, it's 40 years later and we're still best friends. And we don't talk a whole lot. He lives in Mesquite, I live here. But every time we catch up, it's like we never missed a beat. But we hated each other in high school. We literally hated each other in high school. And their team beat my team for zone championship, a region championship, each one of the 4 years, and they were better than us. They had some kids that went and played in college and they were really, really good. But we hated them. But we got to college and we're like, you know what? You're just like me. We're just a small kid, a kid from a small town. And we ended up to be really, really good friends. We used to play a ton of softball together and hang out and stuff like that.
I primarily work with male athletes, have for 20 years. Obviously Shad and I played ball growing up. Shad has 3 daughters. So this is actually a question for both of you. We have had people and do have people, a part of, especially for athletes who have been former Division I coaches who are female. We've had Olympians on. We've had, we try to get female coaches and athletes on, but that's not really our network. So it's a little bit harder. I'm curious to get your thought because we've asked this of another coach before and got an interesting answer. I'm curious your answer, Coach. The difference between coaching women and coaching men. Have you noticed there to be a difference? You have to change the way that you coach.
You know what? Not that much. I thought it was going to be a little different. Young ladies will buy into what you're selling if they believe you maybe a little bit quicker. I was way older than I should have been when I learned this. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. If the young ladies know that you care for them personally, they're going to run through a brick wall for you. And our recruiting philosophy is good person first, good student second, good athlete last. We're going to treat you as a person first. We're going to try to take care of you as a young lady first, as a student second, and then the athlete last, because athletes are a dime a dozen. There's a million kids out there that can hit a ball and throw a ball. We want to find kids that are great young ladies personally first, great students second, and then the athlete last. But young ladies will buy into what you're selling and buy into your system maybe a little bit quicker than guys. Guys, we're all a little bit skeptical. We think we know it all a little bit more. But the young ladies, if you prove that, hey, I have your best interest in heart, I know what I'm talking about, and we can be successful on the field, they're going to buy in maybe a little bit quicker. And they're just as tough as guys. I've watched girls who just get absolutely whatever, and physically, and they come back just as strong as anybody I've ever been around.
This coach that we had on had brought up that when her experiences coaching females, they're a little bit more interested in your opinion of them, meaning if you're disappointed in them and you get angry, where a guy might be like, all right, I'm going to go show coach. It might be a little bit harder for the girl because they want you to be proud of them more. Does that make sense?
100%. That's so true. We use this analogy with I have 23 girls on my roster and there's some of them that I can look at them and say, you know what? Susie, I'm really disappointed. And it's going to absolutely crush Susie. But Barbara right next to her, I'm going to say, Barbara, I'm really disappointed. Barbara's like, yeah, big deal. But for the most part, most girls, yeah, if you tell them that you're disappointed, yeah, that it's going to definitely affect them a lot more than guys. Guys are like, you know what? I'm going to show you. I'm going to prove you wrong. Girls don't have that as easily. There are some that do, but girls won't not take it personally as easy. They'll definitely take it personally. And so we spend a lot of time. Hey, don't ever take anything I say personally. Everything we're saying, especially on the field, is to help you be better at this skill or this whatever. It's not that I don't like you. It's not that you don't look great, whatever, all those things. It's not personal. I need you to be in this spot saying this thing with your hands right here all the time. So, but yeah, them taking it personally, it's a little bit quicker with the young ladies for sure.
I just noticed, and you have as many girls as I have, Dustin. So I just have less boys.
That's true. I just have a lot of kids.
I wish I did. But I've noticed how the relationship aspect to young ladies is really important part of the team, not just with coaches, but also with their teammates. The coaches that have the ability to create true unity, not fake unity, not having some chant that you do together in a circle and then hug each other and say, I love you, and then go stab each other in the back every chance you get. Not that kind of unity, but when there is true, my coach loves me and my teammates, we love each other. I feel like that's when I've seen my daughters perform at their best. And when there's not that, when they don't trust their coach, and it's not even that their coach is like that they can't be hard on them. My girls want their coaches to be hard on them, but they want it to be from a place of love and I want you to reach your potential. And I think whatever coaches can do, I think this is true of men as well, but just especially true of young women. Coaches, if they'll be intentional by telling their individual players, not just, I love you guys, I love you guys, and then showing extra attention to 5 that are the stars. But those moments to connect with each individual is really impactful. And when there have been coaches that have done that with my daughters, connect with them on a personal level, and I love you and I love what you bring to our team, even if it's a role player, which, my daughters, I would say, were role players in the teams that they played on. When coaches appreciated and loved them for the role they brought, the attitude they brought, the contribution they made, even beyond the court or the dance or whatever, they loved and trusted those coaches. And so I think that that's what I've seen make a big difference in the life of my daughters. The coaches that made a difference in their life cared about them and appreciated their contribution, whether it was the most valuable contribution on the team or a role player contribution. They appreciated it and genuinely appreciated them.
We're using a book by John Gordon, The 7 Commitments of a Great Team. And so we're doing a little bit of this year. And one of the commitments is the commitment to connect. And they ask, one of the activities is the 5 each activity. And we're doing this with each one of our classes each week. And basically, it's to find out, more about these kids, because when they know who they are, when your teammate knows more about you, it's a lot easier for them to, compete with you and to understand when you're having a good day or a bad day and how that you need to be helped. But the questions are, who's your hero? What's a hardship that you faced in your life that was a defining moment in your life? What's a highlight you're proud of? What do you hope for? And what's hilarious? And we've done that with our seniors and our juniors so far. Our sophomores will do it sometime this week or next week. And then our freshmen are going to do it. The power that it has brought to our team as far as knowing something that somebody's going through that we didn't know about. There's not a dry eye in the place every time we do it, but it's forming that legitimate connection with these kids. And that's what they want. The difference between guys and girls want a lifelong friend right away. They want to be able to walk in there, and then when they walk out for 4 years, they want to be able to, 40 years from now, I still want to have that person as my best friend. That's what they want, big time.
Yeah. Well, Coach, you've been on this podcast. I've come in, you and I have chatted out in the parking lot for twice, I think, for 30 minutes or so, and I've spoken to your team a couple times. What does especially for athletes mean to you? What we're trying to do with especially for athletes? You've obviously taken to it, and we appreciate that. Thank you so much for helping us get the word out. But what do you see in what Shad and I are trying to do with especially for athletes and Eyes Up do the work that you might be able to share with those people listening? Why is what we're doing important to you?
These kids have a ton of power. They have a ton of influence. They're looked up to so much. We always say, when a kid puts on their social media that they've committed to our school, within 24 hours, they have at least 300 likes. So they have a tremendous amount of power to be able to influence people for good. So get your eyes up. The quote that we had at the bottom of our practice schedule the other day is, character is how you treat somebody that can't do anything for you. What are you doing to help somebody? Who did you actually help out today? So we ask them that all the time. And it's like, look for opportunities to make somebody's day better. Great teams talk and touch. The Steve Nash thing, when he won his MVP, they tracked 239 times, fist bumps, high fives, and hugs. And that was Matt Blanchard. Matt came and spoke to our team the other day, and he's amazing. And I'm going to connect you guys with Matty. Matty's amazing. But he said the physical touch of these kids, and it doesn't even have to be a great athlete, but the physical touch that these kids have of high fives, fist bumps, and hugs, there's a transfer of energy that makes somebody's day better. And it doesn't have to be athlete to athlete. It can be random person walking down the hall. And if this athlete in a Letterman's jacket or a football sweatshirt or whatever looks at that young person and says, "Hey, how you doing?" or looks them in the eye and just says, "Hey, I like your shoes," or whatever. It just makes their entire day. I have a shirt. My wife's going to laugh at I tell this story, but I have a shirt that said, "Be the person that your dog thinks you are." So I was wearing that. I went to the grocery store the other day. I had 4 people comment on that picture or on that shirt and tell me, "I love that shirt," but that made me feel better. And I'm not wearing it to find, I'm wearing it because I want people to act like that. My wife's favorite shirt is "Be a kind human." I love that. That's what we try to preach all the time. But when somebody reaches out and looks you in the eye and says, "Hey, how you doing, Randy? How you doing, Dustin? How you doing, Shad?" Whatever, it makes you feel better and it lifts you up. And it doesn't matter how bad your day is, it's going to make it better, So to have these kids look out and reach out and high five somebody and fist bump somebody and hug somebody and compliment somebody, it's powerful. It really is.
Okay, Coach, we're going to move to some rapid fire here about our principles. And I'm excited to get your thoughts as a Division I college coach on these subjects. And so the first one is win the hour, right? Getting the most out of every moment of every day, being present, being where your feet are. You've watched young ladies, and you as a college basketball player have sought to become great yourself. Throughout your journey and coaching young people, what advice would you give young people in regard to becoming great and winning the hour and getting the most out of their opportunities?
Yeah, they always say we never have enough time. No, we don't take enough time. We don't, the priorities, if you prioritize your time, you're going to have all kinds of time because we have a lot of downtime. Obviously we spend way too much time on the phone. If you put your phone down, be able to get out and do the things, you're going to have plenty of time. Obviously the snooze button analogy that you guys use, that's a great one. You get up and get rolling. The thing that my dad and everybody's dad says, an hour in the morning is worth 2 in the afternoon. If you get here early, you're going to get a lot more done in the morning than you are in the afternoon. So that's a huge one for us.
Awesome. And you coach young ladies, and some would look and think that young ladies are not as competitive as young men. I bet you would say that's false.
Yeah, that's false. These kids, they want to rip your heart out to beat you. They're extremely competitive for sure.
Yeah. And so you're familiar with our principle of competing without contempt, competing without hatred. And I'm curious, as a Division I softball coach, how do you try to build within your athletes that fiery competitor that every coach wants, but balancing that without being inappropriate in that way, competitive to the point that you're a jerk or you hate those that you're competing against? How do you balance those two?
Well, our sport is small enough that these kids all know each other. They all play travel ball. They all play high school. And so they know so many kids in the other dugout. It's not even funny. They've been on a team. They've played with somebody's older brother or sister. They have a connection with almost every kid, especially if it's a local team that we're playing or whatever. They have a connection with those kids. So we don't see the hatred near as much as maybe you would with guys or a team that's maybe a little bit more national, because these kids know each other really well. And they were on a team with that kid as a 12-year-old or whatever. So they have those connections. So compete without contempt isn't too hard. But yeah, there's times where our girls are pretty competitive and they want to win pretty bad. And we have to focus on what we want to get done. And the results will take care of itself. We had a phrase a few years ago, NATO, not about the outcome. It's about the process, Focus on the process to get things done, because it's not about the outcome. The outcome will take care of itself if you do the right thing.
That's really cool. NATO, not about the outcome. That's
correct.
That's awesome. I don't know how I've gone my whole life and not heard that. So
it was awesome, cool. For sure.
Yeah. And so part of this compete without contempt is the way coaches choose to motivate their players. You've probably seen in some sports or some realms, maybe even in the college softball realm, that some coaches try to almost drum up controversy or hate or bulletin board material to motivate their players. How do you motivate your players? And what's the healthiest way you think for coaches to motivate their players?
Wow. If I knew the answer to that, I think we'd be a little bit better. I'm not very good with the skirt and pom-poms thing, the rah-rah stuff, but our expectations, we try to communicate our expectations, play hard every day, play with your tail on fire all the time. One of the things that we always say is we have a get-to job. We don't have a got-to job. We get to do this. And our girls, when they talk about it, it's like, hey, I get to play with my best friends, and I owe it to them to play hard all the time. So we drill, hey, sprint on and off the field. Every rep in the cage is important. Be engaged. Never miss a pitch, those type of things. And it's a little harder to judge how hard you play in our sport sometimes, because basketball and football, you're flying around the field, and how hard you run is really, really visible. Well, in softball, sometimes it's not as visible on how hard you play because there's so much downtime and stuff like that. But being able to bring, the one thing that we always ask our players, what do you bring to our team that nobody else can bring? And that should never take a day off. If it's hustle, if it's throwing an elite rise ball, if it's being able to, take away base hits, if it's an elite arm, whatever you bring to our team that nobody else can bring can never take a day off. That has to show up every day.
Yeah, we've had people say something along the lines when we ask a similar question, that a coach would prefer consistency over motivation every time.
Yeah,
like someone
for sure.
who's consistent and puts in the work rather than someone who shows up one day and is skirts and pom-poms, as you said, instead of just someone who's going to bring the work and concentration every single day.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Awesome. The other part, we touched on this a little bit, but softball's a game of failure, much like baseball that Dustin and I grew up playing and played in college, where, you're successful under 50% of the time, you could still be a Hall of Famer type person. You're going to fail a lot if you sign up to play baseball and softball. And so our principle of resiliency, what are your thoughts on the importance of being a resilient person and how sports or softball in particular can build resiliency in individuals?
Yeah, we have to redefine success. One of the guys that used to talk to our team a little bit, named Zach Sorensen, he worked with Brian Kane a little bit. He had a little activity that he did, and he says, redefine success. So what we did is and again, you probably notice, I'm one of the biggest thieves there is. I steal stuff from really good coaches. PPA, positive plate appearances. I stole this from Clint Hurdle, and we adjusted it a little bit. But we have, the positive plate appearances that we want to be successful at: the hit, the walk, the hit by pitch, catcher interference, move the lead runner with an out, move the lead runner with an error, 8 or more pitch at bat, a high exit velo. Those 8 or 9 things are things that we redefine success, and not very many of them show up in the stat line. Did you have a great at bat? We always say, as a right-handed hitter, if you lined out to the second baseman, you did almost everything right. You let the ball get deep, you hit it on a line, you hit it to the other field. There's just somebody standing in the way of your base hit. So we again, it's not about the outcome. It's about the process. Are you doing things the right way? And did the 3 for 3 things that we think, best swing, be on time, and have it be a pitch you're looking for. If you give me your best swing, you be on time, and it's a pitch you're looking for, you can't ask for anything more.
Yeah. Yeah. And that being able to focus on those things that are within your control is so much healthier.
Yeah.
NATO is going to stick into my mind forevermore. Right.
I like that.
Yeah. And because it's not about the outcome. And sometimes when we start focusing too much on the outcome, then supposed failures become too weighty and discouraging, rather than focusing on those things that are within our control, that might not be outcome oriented, but they are things that we can really focus on and improve. And no, you're speaking to the heart of a baseball player. Some of the best games I ever had, I went 0 for 4.
Yeah, right.
And then sometimes I made the paper and I'm like, yeah, I was late on that. It was a check swing that went over the first baseman's head and I stretched it into a double.
Yeah.
And I'm being praised, right? And so not about the outcome. That's something that will stick with me forever. Awesome. And then you've already shared some of your thoughts about eyes up, do the work, but I wanted to ask a question in relationship to what we were talking about previously with young women, and that relationship aspect of a team being so important. And so this is a specific application of eyes up, do the work. But when it comes to team captains and leaders on a team, how important is it for them to have their eyes up, looking for those on their own team and paying attention to how they're doing and doing the work to go to and to take care of their own teammates?
Yeah,
I'm just curious, your thoughts as a coach about the importance of that.
When your best players are the most invested, your team's got a chance to be really, really good. We pair all of our kids up with peer mentors and coach mentors. So they have an upperclassman and a lowerclassman. And they work together. They sit together in meetings. They're going to do some community service together and stuff like that. So being able to be invested in each other is a huge thing. And that it's not overnight. It takes a long time. You need to go to lunch with them, go study with them, figure out what makes them tick, figure out the things that are weighing on them, being able to know what they like and what they don't like and how to motivate them. That's going to be a huge thing. And then your seniors and your captains have to understand that. They're just like a coach. They need to know how to push buttons for their other 22 teammates. They need to know, hey, does that person need a hug? Does that person need some space? What does that person need right now? When Matt was talking the other day, Matt Blanchard was talking here, he's like, if I come into your office and I talk to you and you absolutely light me up, you call me every name in the book, you chew me out or whatever, I've got one of two choices. I can walk out of your office and tell everybody that I see what a POS you are, or what a bad person you are, or you're having a bad day or whatever. Or I can walk out of your office saying, you know what? He needs a hug. He's going through something right now and he needs me. Yeah, he chewed me out or whatever, but I got two choices. And everybody that's ever done anything hard has always come up to two choices. You can either quit or keep going. They both hurt. They're both going to be unpleasant, but you get two choices. And Matt was talking about that the other day. It's amazing that, yeah, if I come up to that tough choice and I quit, it's going to hurt like crazy. But if I keep going, it might even hurt more, but both of them are going to hurt. So might as well choose the right one and get through it. So
that's really cool. That's really cool. And I wanted to ask one last question. It seems that college softball is on the rise.
Big time.
I was watching the other day, and just because I haven't had much exposure to it, not the other day, this is last spring, but I for the first time in my life found myself a little bit invested in the college softball World Series, where softball is a fast sport. In fact, it's even faster than a college baseball game. It just says bang, bang, everything. What would you say about your own sport and about playing softball at Utah Tech for those who listen to this?
It's the greatest thing ever. These kids work their tail off. They're crazy talented. Is the viewership for the Women's College World Series outpaces the Men's College World Series every year. They're fast. They're athletic. They're crazy talented. They're talented in so many different areas. They're great teammates. They play with a ton of passion. They play hard every play. So those things are obviously on display. It's driven the professional game, the Athletes Unlimited, the other different NPFL, the different leagues or the professional opportunities for these young ladies professionally, whether here or overseas. One of my former assistants, Savannah Jaquist, she's playing with the national team, and she's played in Japan and stuff. And the professional opportunities for these young ladies are really popular because, just like you said, it's fun to watch. It's quick, it's fast, they're talented, it's engaging. And I'm a huge baseball guy, but watching a baseball game for 2 hours, 2.5, 3 hours is tough. Watching a softball game where it's so much faster and the pace of play is faster is so much better.
Yeah. Well, I am so happy for every young person that gets to play for you, Coach. We've got to know you a little bit, not only through this podcast, but Dustin spoke so highly of you, and you're one of those coaches that really gets it. That sports is a tool to help build people. Man, if I had a daughter playing softball, I want her to come down there to Utah Tech, especially from the months of September to tell us, Coach, why do you not have an indoor hitting facility?
Yeah. We always say we don't have an indoor facility because we don't need one. Our weather for the school year is really, really good. So, and we're just getting to the tail end of the hot stuff. So it's going to be perfect for the next few months. So yeah, it's good. No, I've surrounded myself with great assistant coaches and great young ladies. And, obviously my family, my wife have been unbelievably supportive of me, chasing this dream and being able to do these things. So I'm incredibly blessed.
Awesome. Well, Coach, I want to end with one thing.
Come here, buddy.
This is my dog. This is Ripken. So you probably know where that name came from.
100%. So,
but I'm going to leave today and try to be the person he thinks I am. So there you go.
That's awesome. Give Ripken a hug for me. So that's awesome. So,
well, Coach, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you better. And thank you, everyone who's joining us on this podcast. As always, keep your eyes up. Do the work.
Thank you for joining the Especially for Athletes podcast. To learn more about Especially for Athletes organization, get a copy of our book, The Sportlight, or to bring our program to your team, school, business, or organization, visit us at especiallyforathletes.org.